I avoided 2011's The Thing for like 15 years because I love John Carpenter's The Thing. But I finally decided to give it a shot. Okay, before we get started, I have to say this in advance. I absolutely love John Carpenter's The Thing. It is not only one of my favorite horror movies of all time, but it is one of my favorite movies, period. Because of that, I have avoided 2011's The Thing for years. I've avoided it because of the bad reputation it has online, because it's constantly been compared to Carpenter's version of The Thing, and I always assumed it was kind of unnecessary. Before ever watching this movie, I've heard nonstop complaints about how awful the CGI is in this movie. Because of that, I really didn't want to watch it because I didn't want to ruin my love for the original movie. But I finally decided to judge this movie for myself, and I watched it with an open mind. And after watching it, my honest opinion of the movie surprised even me. But let's get started with the premise. To start off with, this is not a remake at all. This is actually a prequel to the 1982 movie. It follows the Norwegian research team from the beginning of the 1982 movie. If you remember at the beginning of that movie, they find the burn camp, the bodies, all the chaos, and this movie basically asks, what the hell happened? It also shows exactly how the camp gets destroyed, and the movie actually shows how the alien was discovered from the original film, which I thought was great, because that's kind of one of those leave it up in the air moments from the first movie. And Carpenter always teased this mystery, so the fact that they tackle this in this movie, it makes a lot of sense. What I liked about this movie was, honestly, it was fun seeing the Norwegian side of the story. I appreciate that they didn't reinvent the mythology. The movie really does try to respect John Carpenter's vision. The snowy Antarctic atmosphere still really works. The isolation and paranoia immediately feel familiar, and the paranoia scenes still really work. The research station looks awesome. The practical sets and the environment looks great. The movie tries very hard to visually connect to Carpenter's movie, and I think it does a pretty good job. Some of the creature ideas are genuinely creepy in this movie. Discovering who's infected is still the best part of this style of movie. That's why I love that original movie. That's what I really like about this one, actually. In this one, they realize that the thing can't replicate metal, so that's how they try to figure out who's really the alien. In the original, they heated up each other's blood to discover it. I thought it was a unique take on recreating that tense scene from the movie. I don't think it was necessarily as tense as that original scene, but I thought they did a good job of getting it as close to that feeling as they could. The language barrier between the Norwegians and the Americans really adds tension to this too. The main character in the movie is Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She plays Kate Lloyd. She's the main paleontologist who's brought in to study the actual alien discovery from the Norwegian scientists. And she does a pretty good job, but I mean, let's face it, she's no Kurt Russell. But yeah, the director of the movie, Matisse Van Heineken, I honestly feel is trying to show respect to Carpenter's original vision. So for that, I thought that made it good. But now, unfortunately, we got to talk about the CGI. Yeah, that is the biggest problem with this damn movie. It's the biggest criticism for a reason. Apparently, there was practical effects filmed for this movie, and the studio thought they were getting too expensive, so they pulled them and they replaced them with CGI. That's why a few of the CGI scenes just look so shitty. You can honestly feel when you're watching the movie, like it feels like a practical effect should be there. Well, it's probably because there was, and the studio replaced it. The CGI, when it is in the movie, though, when it's in a corner, when it's dark, when there's shadows, when there's really quick shots, background moments, yeah, it works just fine. It doesn't take me out of the movie. But the second that the creature is fully lit, it honestly ages the movie and it makes it feel older than 1982's The Thing, because 1982 feels timeless because of the practical effects. The creature reveals sometimes happen too fast. Honestly, less is more with the CGI in this movie. If they would have spent more time on the unknown than just going, wow, here we are, I think the effects would have paid off a little bit more. It's hard to emotionally connect to some of these characters, but you got to understand the original had Kurt Russell, Keith David, and Wilford Brimley. Those are hard actors to top. One of the other big criticisms I have of this movie is that, unfortunately, the comparisons to the 1982 movie are just unavoidable the entire time you're watching it. You can't help but compare it to that. But overall, I mean, as far as watching this movie, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to. I went into this movie thinking I was going to absolutely hate this movie and say that this movie sucks. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but I definitely think it's overhated. I think it's a respectable horror prequel with obvious flaws. I don't think it's a bargain bin, bottom shelf, direct to video horror junk. I don't think it's Children of the Corn 7 or Hellraiser 6. And I genuinely feel like the filmmakers were trying to honor John Carpenter's original vision. As a standalone movie, I'd probably say it's a rent it. But as a big fan of The Thing and it exceeding my expectations, I'm calling it an own it. I'm happy to own it. I think it sits nicely next to the 82 movie on the shelf. I think it's an interesting companion piece for the franchise overall. I don't think it's necessarily an essential piece of horror history, but I don't think it's really embarrassing either. And I'm pretty glad I gave it a fair shot instead of just listening to the internet. So, I mean, with all its flaws, I think it's decent. So go ahead and go check it out. But that's all I got, guys. What do you think of the 2011 The Thing? Do you think it gets a bad rap? Do you think that I'm off base and it's a big steaming turd? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to and look out for more videos. And that's all I got for today.